Cool. Let's go to our other guest then, Kat.
Hey. So I was poorly with the flu a couple of weeks ago. So I basically just watched a bunch of true crime documentaries on Netflix. Because that's what you do when you're sick. And between naps, you decide to watch a documentary about Ted Bundy.
Yeah. What was that called?
It's Conversations with a Killer. It's the one that, obviously the same guy who directed the documentary is doing the movie, whose name escapes me. Joe something? Berlinger? Something like that?
That sounds like it could be a name.
Yeah, I thought you might know. Seeing as Zac Efron's in the movie, I thought you might just know that fun fact. But I think it's something like that. I'll just wait.
Joe Berlinger.
Close enough. Yeah, close enough.
Sure.
So yeah, I watched that. That was really good because it like time jumps quite a lot, but it does it like a lot of documentaries do. But you know, like Making a Murder is super convoluted and it has all these like extra strands and stuff, and you get a bit lost. I don't know how many people here have watched it.
I've seen it all.
I've seen most of it.
Yeah, and Liam, you've seen as much of it as I have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that gets really confusing, but the Ted Bundy one is really, like... It's linear, but it kind of jumps, like, back and forth in time. Like, oh, well, this is what happened at this point with this case, and blah, blah, blah. But if you don't know a lot about Ted Bundy and what he did, I think it's a really good way of explaining it and, like, kind of contextualising everything that happened in the time. Whereas if you already know about Bundy, I don't think you'd really learn anything new from it. I think it's all quite like well-known stuff about him and what he did and his character, which I knew like a little bit. I knew that he'd obviously like killed a lot of women, but I didn't really know about the side of him that he was like this super charismatic person, that there were actually women who couldn't believe that he'd done it, that were like standing outside the courtroom or even in the courtroom watching the case unfold and still thinking he didn't do it purely because he was good looking.
Yeah.
And that just fascinating.
Bundy's a pretty messed up one.
Yeah.
For that.
It was fascinating though. It's a really good documentary that's well worth watching. But I know like the movies had like a load of backlash off the back of the trailer because it's like painting him as being like this really like cool guy. But actually it's you know the expression like rose-tinted glasses? Like where you kind of see it like in a kind of like nostalgic way, you're not really seeing deeper than that. That's what the trailer is supposed to be, I think. It's like, oh, it's got all this cool like music from the time. It's paints him as like how other people saw him as opposed to how he really was.
Well, that's the thing, like when it comes to things like trailers and marketing, right, it could be misdirection.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think it's misdirection. I think they've just not necessarily picked... Because if you've been working on this film, right, and you know that your film paints him... Because that's what I've heard them say in response is, no, that's not what the film is. The film is, he's a monster. Yeah. And so I could see, though, that if you were making that film and you've been working on it, it would be easy to have that in your head and be like, well, Ted Bundy's a monster, so we'll just make this trailer, and not think, oh, we've accidentally made a trailer that doesn't necessarily show that we're showing the monster as well as the
perspective of the film is from his partner at the time, whose name escapes me now.
Know that he did
it. She didn't want to believe it was true, and therefore that's kind of like the point of view that we're going to see, I think, the majority of the film from. I don't think all of it, but definitely the majority of it.
I think it'd be annoying if the trailer was just like, oh, here's all the like gory scenes or whatever, because you want something saved.
But the counterpoint to that is this isn't a horror film that's been made up. This is about Ted Bundy, a serial killer who has impacted lots of people by actually murdering people. Yeah. So I get the whole I don't want them to ruin the film or whatever, but when it becomes a real life thing, you do have to take into account people's feelings on that matter.
I think also
because that's what people are worried about, right?
I think also you have to consider the filmmakers are not the ones who make the trailers.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's actually like handed out to trailer companies who cut the trailers together. So, like, I've heard interviews with various directors and filmmakers who are like, yeah, I was not happy when that trailer popped up and gave away this, but I had no control over it. like, I think there are some directors who will put in their contracts to have, like, control over trailers, like Christopher Nolan and stuff, because he's very, like, anti-spoiler, but, like, I remember hearing with Jurassic World, the first one, like, Colin Trevorrow was like, yeah, when they put the raptors around him on the motorcycle in the trailer, I was so pissed, but there wasn't anything I could do. And he was like,
that makes sense.
like, at that, you know, and he was a newer director then, so it's not even like he could have any clout to be like, you need to change this. And with, I mean, I know the Zac Efron Ted Bundy movie is, like, I can't remember, it's got a really long title, but,
yeah, like, I can't remember, because it's what the judge says to him when he sentences him, but I can't remember. It's like extremely wicked and shockingly...
Extremely wicked, shockingly evil and vile.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It always makes me think of Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, that book, but I'm like, that's not what it is. It's a very different book.
But yeah, like, going back to the documentary, it's, if you like your true crime documentaries, I think you'll like this, because there's some, like, twists and turns in there where you're like, you genuinely can't believe, like, partly how anyone got, like, convicted of anything back then compared to now, where, like, you have so much more, like, technology. He would have been caught a whole lot quicker now than back then, where, like, literally, there's this one bit where he gets called into a lineup and he's parted his hair differently and he gets away because they don't think it's him. Like, that's genuinely it. He literally looks slightly different and they're like, that's not him.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just think that's pretty wild. But, yeah, I think it's probably a 4 out of 5 documentary, I reckon, as far as documentaries go. It's decent. And I know a lot of people... I liked watching it when I did, because lots of other people are watching it at the same time.
Yeah.
So you could see, like, on Twitter and stuff, people reacting to it, which I quite liked that element as well. How
did it compare to something like Making a Murderer?
I much preferred it purely because it just it didn't introduce so many strands like Making a Murderer does.
Yeah.
You had, like, all the key players giving you the facts, and it had, like, enough twists and turns to keep you interested, but it didn't go like so convoluted that you just lose track of what's going on, because that's the issue I had with Making a Murderer, was that it would bounce back and forth, because most documentaries do, but I just couldn't keep on top of it. It felt like you had to take notes when you were watching Making a Murderer. Whereas with this one, it's a lot more, like I said, it's more linear, it makes more sense, and I think the most chilling part of the documentary is, like, the actual tapes of Ted Bundy talking to this journalist who's, like, because it's based on the book, so they've brought all the people together that were kind of involved in the book to then do the documentary, and have the tapes as well. And yeah, it's just super, like, creepy hearing him talk.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see if the actual movie has any of that, like maybe in the credits or something, where they actually show him. But I don't know if they'll...
Or do, like, a disaster artist, where they do it, like, side by side.
Yeah, maybe, but that was a lot more light-hearted.
Yeah, they're probably not going to do that. Look how well Zac Efron pretends to be Ted Bundy.
That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
No, Liam.
No, it really won't. But if you watch the documentary, you can see, like, why Zac Efron has been cast as to play this part.
Because Zac Efron is a serial killer.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because he's crazy good looking and charismatic.
Yeah, he is.
But, like, there's also this certain sort of, like, awkwardness about him.
Oh yeah, if you see him in interviews, he's adorable.
All right, you've made a mistake, Kat.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's move on.
Yeah,